Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In today's video, I once again have two stories for you and both of them have updates. Now let's get started with the first one. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user ScreenPretend7504. Am I the a-hole for not being overly excited that my sister-in-law is pregnant? So I, 23 female, and my husband, 23 male, got married in November. We are both happy and live in the house we bought before we got married. We are not currently trying to have a baby, but we aren't necessarily opposed to getting pregnant. We have been talking about it for about a year, and we both agree that we don't want to wait a super long time to start trying. Last month, I felt off and had super bad morning sickness, so I decided to get a pregnancy test, and it was positive. I was super excited and so was my husband. I made a doctor's appointment, and when I got the blood work back, it was determined that I had a chemical pregnancy. I had gotten myself so worked up for that, and I was heartbroken. We decided not to tell our families because my mother is the kind of person who thinks you should be married for at least a year before trying to have kids, so I really didn't want to get into it. A few weeks later, we had to go to the bank to get my mom's name off my bank account. It's been that way since I was 15, and put my husband's name on it. My mom offered to pick us up since she would be driving past our house to get to the bank. We agreed and didn't think anything of it. On the car ride there, my mom started talking about our finances. She said that we spend too much money and need to start budgeting. She says this pretty much every time we see her, but this time she was getting on to my husband. Talking about how he needs to do a better job at supporting me and suggesting that he get a second job. Side note, he just had started a new job after being let go from a job where he made $26 an hour for reasons that were not his fault. Anyway, I decided that I was not going to put up with this, and it soon turned into a screaming match between me and my mom. Once it calmed down, she said, "I know about your OBGYN appointment. I hope you aren't pregnant." I immediately burst into tears and said, "I was, but now I'm not." Her response was, "Good. It breaks my heart to think about you having a baby right now. You are too immature and not financially stable enough." The rest of the car ride was silent. Now, this past weekend, my brother, 25 male, and his wife, 24 female, who have been married for almost 3 years, announced their pregnancy, and my mom was beyond excited. She was screaming, jumping up and down, saying, "My first grandbaby!" I acted the best I could and hugged them both and congratulated them. I excused myself to the bathroom when everyone was talking. No one was paying attention to me, so I didn't think anything of it. I collected myself and went back to join the party. Everyone was still excited and happy. I assumed everything was fine. The next day, my mom called me and proceeded to say how rude I was that I made everyone uncomfortable and therefore stole their spotlight. I didn't even know what to say, so I just said I'm sorry and hung up. I haven't said anything to anyone since, but my mom is still texting me, demanding I apologize to my brother and sister-in-law. So, am I the a-hole? I might be the a-hole because I wasn't super happy that my brother and his wife were having a baby. No, OP, I don't think you're the a-hole. If your brother and his wife have a problem that you weren't jumping up and down like your mom was, well then your brother should say something to you. But apparently he hasn't, and I guess nobody really noticed that you excused yourself. I mean, you said that by the time you got back, everybody was still excited and happy, you hugged them both, you congratulated them, and then it's like you had to go to the bathroom. Like you could have been gone for anything else, not just to compose yourself. Your mom is being extremely overbearing. And on the topic of that, your mom needs to get a life. You need to distance yourself a bit from her. Maybe go low contact because she's got too many unwarranted opinions about your life and your husband's life. If she's got something to say, well, maybe she could wait until she's asked for her opinion or is actually given an in like a conversation or something, but not just tell you what she thinks you should do. You're not her kid anymore. Also, her response to you having a chemical pregnancy, which is basically a miscarriage, was good? F her, man. So yeah, OP, definitely not the a-hole, and I would reconsider the distance I have with this woman. What do you guys think about OP's situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Educational State 4374 says, "Oh my god, you're an adult. Your husband is an adult. Your mother doesn't get to have a say in your and your husband's important life decisions. She only gets to give advice, and that's only when asked. You need to have a conversation with your mom about how, now that you're trying to build your life together with your husband, she needs to let you do just that. Tell her you'll ask for advice when you need help, but let you do this on your own first." Honestly, she doesn't sound like the kind of person who would understand or listen to this. But I don't know you or your mom, so I'm trying very hard not to say, "Cut her off," not the a-hole, OP. Neon Cactus Fields says, "Not the a-hole. You are still grieving from your own news that you weren't pregnant. Also, your mom has no idea why you excused yourself to the bathroom. For all she knows, you had something for breakfast that upset your stomach. The bigger issue here is that your mom is a grade A bully. She's over involved in your life and super critical and controlling. You would be much happier if you went low contact with her for a while, or maybe even permanently." And Slenderman is my dad says, "Not the a-hole, but please listen to me. Your mother is an a-hole and needs to be out of your life. Clearly, no matter what you do, she's going to go after you. She had a list of all the ways she can insult you and your husband. She was literally going through your bank account to spy on you and judge you. Your husband deserves better than that. Also, shut that account down and transfer it to another bank because she'll go right back in there and keep trying to get access to it. Stop giving her your attention. Stop letting her treat you like this. Not all mothers are great or even good. Start detaching. If you don't cut her off, this is going to be the rest of your life. If you can't cut her off for yourself, do it for your husband." Additional information from OP's comments. My mom knew about my OBGYN appointment because she was stalking my bank account and saw the payment to the doctor's office. The account started as a student account when I was 17 and we just changed it. I wanted to change it sooner, but I was living at home and basically walking on eggshells. So now she has zero access. Still, I don't want to cut her off because she is my mother. My husband even said to cut her off. To be totally honest, my mom hasn't always treated me like this. I think it probably has something to do with the fact that her last child moved out, me. So now she's alone with my dad and can't control anyone else. Her general attitude is mainly a "don't bother people with your problem, no one cares" way. On a side note, my whole family is super religious and I'm not, so they have always favored my brother over me. Usually I get a "why can't you be like sister-in-law and your brother?" and I just ignore it and walk away. But I think this hurt extra because I know my mom will never be that excited for me. I do have my own vehicle and the bank account wasn't an issue until recently. I don't think no contact is going to happen anytime soon, but definitely low contact, and that's been something that I've been thinking about a lot. Right now, I'm still trying to process everything. I'm hoping that over time, everything will calm down. My husband and I think she's just upset because the last child or baby, if you will, is leaving her, like I said before. But at the same time, I've always been the sibling that no one really pays attention to. Okay, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and their suggestions went from low contact to absolutely cut your mom because she's a demon. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. I think low contact would be the best option for OP, but you know, like a low contact timeout kind of thing to evaluate how the mom continues to behave. In any case, it's time to move on to the update to see how this story ends, but before that, if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to leave that like or dislike if you don't like it. Also, a comment always helps, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now, let's continue with the update. It's been 11 months since my original post, and after everything happened, I decided to take a step back and stop talking to my family unless it was in a large group gathering like Christmas or something. I really think that helped greatly. I got all of my financial information figured out and made sure I had my mom taken off of everything. The space was very beneficial, and I think it helped me grow a backbone. Fast forward, and I found out that I was expecting our rainbow baby back in September, and my husband and I were over the moon. It was definitely hard at first, but we couldn't be more excited. We decided that we were going to keep everything a secret for a little while to figure out how to tell everyone. That worked out well because about a month later, my nephew was born, so that helped me get an idea about my mom's attitude and emotions. It seemed like something had changed. She still made a few comments here and there, but it was nothing too bad. Later, I and my husband talked and decided that we would tell everyone at Thanksgiving. That way, if anyone had anything negative to say, everyone would hear it. So we came up with a cute way to tell both of our families. I made a onesie that said, "The turkey is not the only thing in the oven," and held it up during the family picture, so when you look at the picture, you could see it. Surprisingly, everyone was excited, including my mother. She instantly started crying and gave me and my husband huge hugs. It was a huge relief since I had been stressed out about it since I found out. But of course I stayed skeptical since she was in front of the whole family. But to my surprise, she called me the next day telling me that she was so happy for us, asking how I was feeling and how far along I was, and telling me that if we ever needed anything, to call her. Which, to me, is something I've never heard. Going forward, I continued to keep my distance, but I still talked to her when she called, which she called a lot. She called me every few days, asking how I was feeling since she knew I was having a hard time eating because of morning sickness, more like all-day sickness. That really meant a lot to me, and she still does that. I'm now 22 weeks pregnant with our baby girl and finally feeling better. We painted the nursery this weekend and she was over the moon when I asked if she wanted to help. And she has already offered to watch our dog and cats when the baby comes so that my husband and I can have some time to bond with her. I will continue to place boundaries, but it's nice to have a mom who actually makes sure I'm okay and offers help. Thank you everyone for the support, and I can't wait to meet our baby girl. Well, OP, from what you're telling us in the time that has passed, the change in your mom seems genuine. Maybe she just needed time to understand and mature on the fact that she went from having nobody in the house to now being a grandma. Since your nephew was born, that maybe gave her a little bit of perspective. Still, it's good that you're gonna keep your boundaries in place and make them be respected. And on that note, here's wishing you and your husband the best in the future and the upcoming growth of your family. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. And now, let's move on to the next post that, like I said in the beginning, also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Legal Advice, and it's by user Matt C. Sweet. Ex-girlfriend wants to take me to court to make sure her child we had together is included in my will. My ex and I had a child, and she split with the child when the kid was 3 years old. I didn't hear back from her till she was 13 years old and a handful. I paid child support till she was 21, since she graduated high school at 21. That was 9 years ago. Now, I'm semi-retired and have seen a letter for a court date listing her as the plaintiff. I called her brother up to see what was going on, and he informed me that she wanted to make sure her daughter was in my will. The way it's written, she gets nothing but has to be listed, or else she can contest the will. There's a long story that goes with why she is not in the will. My question is, can she make such a demand and will the court go on her side? Should I get an attorney from a local attorney or the will attorney involved with this situation? Alright, well, since I am not a lawyer or have any idea of what OP can or cannot do, I'm just gonna move on to the community comments to see what they said. Tiki Freaky says, no, your ex is completely wrong. You can include or exclude whoever you want in your will. In fact, excluding people, including children, is very common. If she in fact sues, you do need an attorney. Should not be too expensive as this is complete BS. I will not get into the morality here as it's not my business or the point of this sub. Sam Cookie says, you're getting a lot of advice based on some possibly incomplete information. I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney and probably not licensed in your state. I'm not aware of any state where you could sue to have someone included in a will, so don't assume that's what this is about just because that's what her brother told you. Go to the court and get a copy of the petition, or if it's part of an older child support case or something, get the most recent motion that has been filed. That will tell you what she's suing you for. And Tyson 3 says, there are no enforceable legal grounds to require someone to put anyone in their will. The only question is whether the will is valid. You should get an attorney, and you should seek for her to pay for your attorney's fees for a frivolous action. Alright, well, I'm gonna assume OP got decent advice, or at least good advice, because he gave us an update from the Entitled People subreddit. So let's finish this story with that. First, here's the backstory that led us here. It's long, and no, she's not getting a single dime or thing from our estate. Clara and I met in Florida back in 1990 and hit it off right away. I was 20 and she was 19. Thanks to her, it didn't take long before we had money problems. She blew our savings and got fired. In 1992, she had our daughter. By the time we had her, I was working 7 days a week on 3 different job sites and barely saw them. We ended up moving in with her parents. After she had the baby, her dad was transferred as he was in the Navy and wanted to be closer to his son, Clara's brother. During the moving process, I got a phone call telling me that Clara wanted to break up. Well, crap. I'm still moving up to try to patch things up and to be close to my daughter. I ended up staying with Cody, Clara's brother, and we became best of friends. I had McKinley, our daughter, every weekend and was giving my ex $125 a week for support. After a while, I stopped trying to patch things up with the ex because of how much drama she was creating. Our friendly agreement came to a stop when her mom passed away. 2 weeks after that, she packed all her stuff and moved in with a new boyfriend she had met a few times. Sometime after that, I had a girlfriend who is now my wife. I told her the situation and she was extremely supportive. She was on a mission to help me get my daughter back. We got married in '96 but didn't hear from Clara till 1997. When she called, she wanted $1,800 for me to speak to my daughter, and I paid. I was on the phone with her for less than 5 minutes and Clara took the phone and said, "If you want more time, you're gonna have to pay up more cash." I told my wife and Cody this and they were livid. She called a few more times asking for money and pretty much told her let's go to court. Every time she would hang up the phone. I hired a private investigator and found out that she was in the Tampa, Florida region. I tried to hire an attorney but they all declined my case. I personally drove down to Tampa in 1998 and got to stand in front of a family court judge for him to laugh me out of court, stating that I have no family claim. Fast forward to 2006. McKinley is 13. Ex's dad calls me and says she's in trouble at school. She's only in 5th grade, and since my wife is a teacher, he feels like it would be best for her to stay with us. My wife agrees to take her in and get her a psychiatrist to see if there's trauma or ADHD holding her back. This is the nightmare that followed throughout her stay. She stole from almost all of the teachers she had. She removed the safety bar on the bunk bed, which led to her sister breaking her arm. She would scare her sisters, telling them horror stories until midnight, and if they didn't want to listen to them, she would hurt them. The final straw was at 14. It was incredibly violent, and I'll just tell you that we're lucky our daughters weren't hurt or worse, and she was tackled down by the babysitter. Cops were called and she was escorted to jail and then the mental hospital where Clara had to pick her up from. Clara ended up filing for child support and was awarded $250 a month. Then, even more nightmares came after this. Things like breaking and entering, grand larceny, grand theft auto, blackmail, and drug charges. I once sent her a copy of a family cookbook, to which she responded by email with a picture of it burning, saying she didn't give a damn about this family crap and that all I was a bank account to draw from. Every time she had charges brought up against her, she would end up in a mental hospital. Clara would call for bail money, which I declined every single time, but I made sure that she had all the help and the bill was covered. By 24, she had 2 kids and they both ended up in foster care. By the time I was told this and tried to get custody of my grandchildren, Clara had attempted to take them, and the state put a squash on the family having any custody. Throughout the past 30 years, I've been put through hell and back. My wife has seen me completely broken down from this turmoil and has been nothing but supportive of me. I'll be damned if she gets a thing from our estate. I'd leave something to the grandchildren, but I don't have names or locations for them. All of this brings us to my r/legal advice post. After getting served, I get on the phone with her brother, who to this day is still a good friend of mine, to see what is up with his sister. He's in no contact with his sister due to the drama that unfolded in our breakup, but he talks to his dad and takes care of him. So he called him up. He had told his dad that I had quit my job, left the Tidewater area, and was semi-retired. The dad then informed his daughter of this and made it sound like I was just absolutely loaded. He told her to make sure that our daughter is in my will. That's when I posted about this issue. I hired the local attorney and also put him in contact with the attorney who drafted the will. Here comes the court time. There's my attorney and myself on the defendant's side, and only Clara, my ex, is on the plaintiff's side. The local judge is an older lady, and she started by asking Sarah what this was about since the way this was filed didn't give her much to go by. She asked, "Does he owe you back child support?" My ex explained, "No, Ms. Judge. Child support stopped 10 years ago. I just want to make sure that my daughter is well taken care of after he kicks the bucket." The judge corrected Clara to address her as Your Honor, and then asked, "How do you plan on making sure your daughter is taken care of?" And my ex just told her that she wants the will to be read, and if our daughter isn't in it, then the judge should force me to put her in it. The judge rolled her eyes and asked my lawyer for the document in question. My lawyer then said, "My client spoke to the plaintiff's brother and found out that this document might be at the center of the issue. We also have the attorney who drafted the document ready to be on video chat, Your Honor. Here is the document." The judge then said they'd take a recess to investigate and asked my ex for our daughter's full name and social security number to have all the information. Now, through all of this, Clara has this evil, crap-eating grin looking at me as the judge leaves the courtroom. 4 hours later, we get called back to the courtroom. Ex is still grinning ear to ear. The judge began asking my ex about our daughter's current address and warned her about lying. That's when the grin disappeared as she answered, "Louisiana State Jail." The judge followed up by asking where our daughter was moving to, and my ex said, "Alabama Federal Jail." Long story short, she was running drugs across state lines, got into a chase in a stolen car, and then things got really ugly with some state and federal agents. Long story short, she was sentenced to 20 years in Louisiana and life in Alabama. Then the judge tells my ex, "Miss Clara, you brought a frivolous case in front of this court. You're not entitled to see this document, since OP is still alive and kicking. I didn't even read the document." Surprisingly, the only thing my ex thought of asking was if the judge couldn't tell her how much she was getting. And that's when the judge hit her with, "Not only will I not tell you, but you now have to pay court costs and OP's attorney." Stubbornly, my ex asked what court she would need to file to get an answer. And the judge just told her, "You can try all the way up to the Supreme Court and they are still going to deny. Court adjourns." The total payment she's on the hook for is $5,000, since the attorney in Hampton was also collecting a fee on this. Bye, Clara. Wow, OP, that post was a roller coaster and I had to curate it in order to be able to read it. I am so sorry that you went through all of that, which brings us to the question, nurture or nature? Now, apart from all of that, the only thing that's happy here is that your ex is not getting anything, but actually has to pay you and your lawyers the fees. What a scumbag person that is. And on that note, hopefully you can get that money from her. And in the meantime, here's wishing you and your wife and your family all the best in the future, OP. Thank you for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.